Hey everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Ditching the Spotlight. In case you didn't catch our episode 0, we are an interview-style podcast focused on the lives of celebrities who left fame and fortune for new endeavors. My name is Rob and I'm your host on this journey through the world of cinema, television, and the music of yesteryear. We'll be picking the brains of the faces behind the songs, shows, and movies that you love so much. Get ready for a healthy dose of nostalgia while we dive into the mind of Rikrok. Without further ado, here is the interview. All right, guys. So our guest on today's episode is responsible for one of the most iconic lines of the early 2000s. This song sold over 9 million copies and coined a phrase that still echoes today. It Wasn't Me was the UK's best-selling single of 2001, and we've got the man behind the voice, Rikrok, here with us today. How are you, Ricky?
I'm doing good. What's going on? And actually, I should correct you. It's actually more than 9 million. It was 10 million. And that plaque behind me, that's the proof.
Oh yeah, I see it. That's a beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how clear it is on your screen, but yeah, there you go.
That's awesome.
10 million worldwide.
Hey, that's more than I'll ever sell of anything. So
you know what? If I can do it, I think anybody can do it. Trust me, that I can't believe that it happened with me. So hey, it's possible.
You know, I read the your background story on your website, and it was really revealing, and it does certainly seem like you came from a hard place in music where you were writing a lot and not really getting notoriety, and then bam, you just kind of blew up.
Yeah, it does look that way, and it's funny. A friend of mine, he phrased it this way. He said, he was, what was it? He took 10 years to become an overnight success. And so,
I like
right?
that. That's
right. I loved it when he said it, and so it is kind of like that, and it's like that. I'm pretty sure it's like that with everybody, because you start out, with a dream, and of course the dream doesn't come with an instruction manual, so you don't know what in the world you're doing, and then it takes you a while just to figure out what this dream even is. What is this whole music industry thing? And so it takes you a while to learn it, first of all, and then that's when you can finally start to work. And then the first work that you do is, you're still figuring your way around. And then in my case now, I happen to be lucky to have been living in Jamaica, and the music industry there is pretty small. So you have, once you meet a few key players, you'll start to end up kind of meeting everybody. And that's how I kind of ended up meeting Shaggy. And that it just kind of, he actually heard me demoing a song that I'd written. And then that's when he came over to talk to me. I was like, man, we should probably start doing some writing together. And then we wrote tons of songs. I mean, for that first album, I believe it was like 110, 120 songs, of which we chose 14. Well, I say they chose 14 to become the Hotshot album. So, I mean, even when you're doing well, you're still just writing and writing and writing, right? And it can become very frustrating.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I know that, sometimes from a listener perspective or a fan perspective, it seems like you guys are just living the life and on yachts with girls and stuff all the time. But there's actually a lot of really legitimate, difficult work that goes into writing songs.
Shaggy calls it television because that's what it is.
I like that.
A lot of people, and that's the thing. And then even aspiring singers and artists and musicians, see music videos and think, man, that's the life I want. A music video is a promotional tool. It's like an action movie. Tom Cruise does not live like that in real life, So it's a similar kind of thing. We're creating almost a fantasy for people, for that 3 minutes and 25 seconds that the song is playing, and then it ends, and then we move on to the next song. And so it's really easy to get caught up in it. And then it's like when you meet your favorite movie star or your favorite comedian is probably a better example, and you expect them to just be funny all the time, and they're not. They're like really chill and quiet, and like, man, this is not what I was expecting at all. It's, I guess, something like that. It's nothing behind the scenes is so completely different to what you'd assume.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I've heard that a lot from people that meet their favorite like stand-up comedians, that they're like, hey, tell a joke, and they're like, I don't really have anything prepared, everything's kind of a stage show.
Yep.
And so
it's all planned. I mean, they'll literally sit down, sometimes even weeks at a time, writing jokes. I saw an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, and what he did to kind of make sure he's constantly writing is he had this little calendar on his wall, and every day he'd want to write a joke every day. And for every day that he wrote a joke, he put a little X on that day. And the whole point of that was to make sure not to miss an X. Didn't want to break the pattern. And that's how he ended up, developing this whole long list of material that he has now. But you have to keep doing it because, things change. I mean, whatever was current 5 years ago, even 5 minutes ago, isn't current right now. So, it's an ongoing process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned writing over 100 songs with Shaggy just for the Hot Shot album.
Right.
Do you was there any songs that you guys wrote that you really felt like maybe should have made the album, but the record executives didn't?
Yeah. That's I love that question because no one has ever asked me that. And there was one in particular. I think it was called and so it was a song for a female. Was it? I guess someone singing the chorus, a female singing the chorus, and then him doing the verses. And the whole time we were thinking, yeah, Mary J. Blige would be perfect at this time, Mary J. Blige. And we actually ended up meeting her, but never introducing the song to her or anything. And every subsequent album, I'd be like, yo, Shaggy, we need to get that song on. And he's like, yeah, I know you love that song. But it just never ended up happening. And, I guess you got to kind of, well, I didn't understand it at the time, but, when you get more familiar with how the business aspect of music marketing works, you come to realize, it's not necessarily about what you love, it's what the audience loves. And so you got to figure out, you figure that out by listening to what's playing on the radio right now or what's selling, those kinds of things. And if these songs don't fit into that particular category, well, it's probably not a good gamble. So, but I still love that song. I wish that song would come out.
Yeah, I wish I could hear it too. It sounds like, I've always found that the songs that the artists love writing the most oftentimes come off as more personal and, it would definitely be something I'd love to hear. And I know a lot of other people would too.
Yeah, no, it was a really cool song. And I think the thing about it back then too, we really enjoyed the whole writing process, which is why I guess it wasn't until it was over and then we look back like, man, we wrote over 100 songs. We didn't realize we were enjoying the process. So, and then that definitely came across in that set of songs that we were doing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how you know that, you're passionate about what you're doing is when it seems like, you can bust out 100 songs for one album and be like, man, it felt like we were writing 10 or 12,
Now, mind you, it took us 2 years or so thereabouts to write these 100 songs, but I mean, it was still a lot more than I realized. But you're right. It's a buzzword that's going around now, especially on social media. You'll hear things like authentic. You got to be authentic, and so you'll see a lot of and I see this all the time, and it irks me. Aspiring superstars. Maybe one day you will be a superstar, but you're not a superstar yet. So stop trying to be, right? Just be you, be yourself. And that's what people connect with. People trying to be, I'm leaning up on a Lamborghini. Whose Lamborghini is it? I don't know. It was just in the parking lot. Just be you. There's my Hyundai over there. Yeah, it's cool. It's clean. Yeah, and I got some garbage in there, but don't worry about it. I don't use that part. But, be you. And people connect with this much more. They appreciate what's the word? Authenticity, genuineness. Is that even a word? But that's what they connect with. And, because like all these big stars, Ed Sheeran, even Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, they all come across as real. They don't come across as people who are trying to be something or trying to be someone else or whatever. And the same is true of up and coming artists. Same thing. You come across as you. And people are like, yeah, who was that singer? I don't have a clue, but I liked him. He was nice. So a little bit of teaching there.
Absolutely. And I always feel like I connect with artists that feel a little bit more authentic. Like somebody who's singing about like a broken heart or something is going to come across and be more authentic to me than somebody who's, driving a fleet of Murcielagos. I have a harder time relating to that because I don't think I'll ever drive a Murcielago.
I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard of that.
It's a really fancy car.
Okay.
So, if I'm remembering correctly, you actually performed Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary special.
I did.
Looking back, go ahead.
It blows my mind just to think about it because I was a big fan, coming up as a kid, and even to this day, absolutely love his music. And that was his 30th anniversary. And It wasn't me and Angel were big hits at the time, and so we got invited to perform, and it was just incredible. Not only was Michael Jackson there, but all of the top singers and players at the time. From Beyonce and the whole Destiny's Child crew. James Ingram, I was another big fan of. Patti LaBelle, Chris Tucker, what's his name? Kenny Rogers. So many huge stars that were there. Dionne Warwick, and just people that I grew up listening to, and here they were, like nothing. You say hi and they're like saying hi to you, like they recognize you and think it was the coolest thing ever. And a surprisingly nice environment. A lot of these big stars, you'd think that they'd be, mean and not particularly friendly. Everyone was just so nice. It was just the coolest thing ever. Coolest thing ever.
It sounds like it. Did you you're performing in front of these people? Did you feel like an extra level of, I don't know, nervousness performing in front of,
it's funny because I think by that point, wasn't me, we'd been promoting It Wasn't Me for probably a year or two by that point. And so in terms of the, being on stage kind of vibe, it was like just another show. And the thing with our performance is, I say just another show, but let me explain. I'm convinced that we enjoyed performing on stage even more than the audience enjoyed listening to us. We had so much fun on stage, jumping up and down. And this was just another example of that. And then, of course, having hits just made it easier. Because, of course, people are singing, word for word, every song that we're singing. But it was just a really enjoyable time. And it was cool. There's that initial, whoa, this is Madison Square Garden. And, oh, this is Michael Jackson. And, oh, this is all these big stars. But then once that music starts, and we get to sing again. Woo-hoo! That's what kicks in, and we're having the time of our lives. And looking at people in the audience enjoying the songs. And then when I look back at the video, I didn't realize they were cutting to audience members, and everyone was singing these songs word for word. I mean, I love that. And even Michael, I didn't notice this when we were performing it, but when I watched the video, there was a point where he says, "Oh, I love this song," and it was people telling me like, "Man, Michael Jackson loved your song." I'm like, "Really? Who told you that?" He said it. I had to go look at the video, and then that's when I saw like, "Oh, man, I thought I was his biggest fan. Maybe he's mine. I don't know what's going on here." But that was extremely cool to have Michael Jackson say that about something that I not only wrote but I sang as well. I mean, I grew up trying to sing like him at one point. And here's this, my idol here saying this, mind blowing. Just,
I mean, that's amazing. Just hearing that one of your idols and the people that you kind of influenced you to get into music likes one of your songs. I mean, that's got to be an incredibly cathartic experience.
I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. Let me tell you, because for me, songwriting. I started out as a songwriter. It was a hobby. From I was like maybe 17, 18, I tried it. I said, "Oh, this ain't bad. I can keep doing this." Because I tried poetry one day. Ooh, it was bad. It was bad. But it turns out I was writing songs, not poems. And so when I started writing songs, like, okay, this ain't bad. And then a friend of mine, who is now Sean Paul's musical director, he's my friend from high school. He at the time was Shabba Ranks keyboard player. And so he was my only connection to the music industry. And he heard a song that I'd written one day. We were hanging out, and he said, "Man, I'm gonna take you to the studio." And so he was basically the one that introduced me to the music industry. So I got big ups to Nigel's staff right there, boy. And so, all of this coming together, seeing how the process works, seeing, oh, it actually is work. Actually, yeah, I can write, but there's more to learn. And then he introduced me to probably Jamaica's top songwriter, a guy named Mikey Bennett, who mentored me and improved my writing skills to a point where I could actually write commercial songs. And then when I started working with Shaggy now, then that took it to a whole different level. And then it's funny, we say Shaggy, but one of the biggest creative influences behind Shaggy was actually his manager, who's now my manager, Robert Livingston. Just an idea fountain. You can't have a conversation with this man without having at least 4 song ideas. It's unbelievable speaking to him. He's a character and a half. But man, you just, all of these different ideas and, just different things that you can do with songwriting and being an artist manager. He has the advantage of not just being creative musically, but he's also creative from a marketing perspective. So, he's thinking songs in a market, competing against a particular other, set of artists in a genre. That's how he's thinking music. And it's impossible to keep up with it.
It almost sounds like he's kind of the yin to your yang. You have the songwriting ability. He has
And he's the invisible yin to the yang. He's the one that you never hear about, you never see. Even record labels get such a bad name, and I don't think it's fair, to be honest, because they're the ones taking most of the risk. If you think about it, they put up hundreds of thousands of dollars in many cases, sometimes even millions of dollars, not knowing if this project is going to work or not. And so they spend money first, and then it doesn't work, and then they just eat it. That's it. It's done. That money's down the toilet. The artist doesn't share that risk. Now, if it works, then of course, they get, and they actually get the lion's share of the income, but they took the lion's share of the risk. So it's, some people probably say, Rick, yeah, you don't understand how it works. Yeah, they're horrible, they're evil people. I don't know. If thinking of myself as a businessman, and I want to invest $100,000 in a new act, doesn't cost them anything. I spend all this money, it doesn't work. I'm not going back to them now and saying, all right, yeah, you owe me $75,000. And if I was to try that, it'd be ridiculous. Oh, you can't do that. So there's all these different perspectives that, people assume one thing based on what they see on even interviews or things they see on TV programs. But then you talk to someone who's actually been there and in it, and you're like, oh, actually, maybe there's more to this than we're seeing. I'm just a face. And, not a particularly good looking face, right? But so just the face right now. But there's an entire army, many of whom I've never actually met. So there's marketing people. There's people that were, taking it was CDs at the time, taking the CDs to the radio stations, taking them to the mix DJs, taking all to these different places, basically distributing this music, getting it out there. And I've never met most of these people. So thank you, marketing people.
We owe a lot to the marketing teams.
Yeah, man, trust me. They get no highlight ever. I've never heard anybody say big up to the marketing people. So let me be the first.
Hey, Rikrok, the marketer's champion.
There you go.
So that kind of is actually a good transition into my next question, which is, it isn't a secret that you left music after things with It Wasn't Me started to settle a bit. Could you speak to that decision and the difficulty of walking away from it all?
Right. It actually wasn't that hard for me. It Wasn't Me was doing extremely well. And then Angel came in, which I also helped co-write, start, bubbling and doing really well. And then the plan was, all right, we need to work on a Rikrok album. So Robert's like, yeah, let's get this album done. And so I'm working on that. Eventually stopped touring with Shaggy to go and finish this album. And then the record company, what we didn't know is that they were kind of struggling. It was a part of the Universal Group, and it was like one of their labels that just wasn't doing well. And then along comes Shaggy with all these huge hits, and then, okay, I guess we need to hang on for a little bit. And so they were planning to shut it down. Once It Wasn't Me and Angel took off, they decided to hold off on that. But once the momentum died, then they were like, all right, yeah, now we can shut it down now, because it was losing the money. So they shut it down, and then shifted us over to, before that we were offered a label deal, I think is what it was. And so I got signed to MCA through that label deal. And so working on the stuff, submitting what we're submitting, they seemed to be liking what we're doing. But then the label was in trouble. And I guess, I wasn't really keeping up with this stuff. Robert, of course, knew. And then eventually he's like, yeah, you know what, this label deal, I don't know if this is the best move. So that was a huge delay. They ended up shutting down MCA. And so now there's no label deal. I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't know. Let's see what I can do. And then it's right around the time when I'd met my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I'm like, well, let me go spend some time with the wife. I got the time now. Hanging out with her a bit, let's spend more time there. So spending less time making music, more time there. Eventually we get married now. And then start having children now. I'm like, you know what? I'm liking this. Robert, if you need me, call me, you know where to find me, kind of thing. And of course, in terms of income now, with the residuals from the Hot Shot album was still coming in. It's still coming in to this day. And it wasn't millions of dollars or anything, but it was enough, to cover bills and live on. So I was like, yeah, I'm good. And I got a little comfortable in this whole family man thing. And it was when, I think when my dad died now, it kind of caused me to kind of reevaluate, like, oh, there's more to this. I need to look into this, because this, the whole idea of heaven and hell and all this kind of stuff, started to had been creeping into my head for a little while. And then when he died now, I was like, oh crap. So if I was to die now, what would happen to me? And I started researching all that. And long story short, both my wife and I ended up joining a church, becoming baptized. And so that now I was like, all right, so if I'm a Christian now, what kind of music do I make? Do I still make secular music? Am I supposed to make gospel music? But I don't really know enough about this to be making gospel music, etc. And so that was kind of the main, I think I wouldn't say the nail in the coffin, but that was kind of the thing that put me on pause for a good while, because I didn't want to be inauthentic, I guess. I didn't want to be, singing about one thing but believing something else. And so I decided to just chill for a bit. And thankfully, because the what do you call them, the royalties were still coming in, and I was still able to, float my family. I could afford to do that. And so it was not until maybe 3 years ago now, I was talking to Robert, and was like, man, you know what? I think it's time we can start making music again. Because when I look back at my music, the songs that had come out, it wasn't like anything I was singing was anything, bad or anything. I was thinking about relationships. And then you actually go into the Bible and you see what's in the Bible regarding relationships. There's more drama in that book than people realize. And so that's when I started to feel more comfortable with it. And so the plan was now, all right, we're gonna go back on tour. I'm gonna start touring again. I'm gonna start making more songs, and we're gonna April 2020 sounds like a good time to start. April 2020. This is when the pandemic is in its height. So that's where I'm kind of, I was kind of paused. So like, all right, let's chill for a bit. It might be a good thing, because to be honest, I hadn't, done any live performances or like traveling and touring for a number of years at this point. So I was in no shape to do it. So I had to join the gym. I had to start doing vocal exercises again, and then all of this stuff. And then even writing, it's a muscle that if you don't use it for a while, it gets a little rusty. So that I had to start getting into the habit of writing and all that stuff. It was an unintentional departure, I guess. It wasn't something I'd planned, but it kind of ended up working out that way. I hope I didn't. I just used up the entire interview time to say that, didn't I?
It's totally okay. So basically you're saying that there could be a time when we hear some more Rikrok on the radio.
Yeah, you know what? My one of my daughters one day, she we were crossing paths in the hallway, and she said, "Dad, why don't you make music no more?" And I said, "Well, I wanted to stay and be with you guys, and et cetera, et cetera." And the generic dad response. And she didn't even respond to me. She just had this look on her face, just very unimpressed. And so I took that, I figured out what she was thinking. I was like, I should probably start making music again, shouldn't I? And she just nodded. Yeah, you think? And so that was kind of the initial catalyst to say, yeah, right, let me think about how I can approach this. And there's all kinds of little things that were going on. I mean, I mentioned my dad dying, but even at the time as well, I wasn't really liking the music I was hearing on the radio. And from a marketing perspective, again, you can make music that's different to what you're hearing, but if you go too far, then you make it difficult for radio DJs to figure out, all right, where do we play this music? Or so it makes it difficult for a marketer if your music is too far left. Now, someone like Beyonce or Kanye West, they can do that. They can get away with just going in a completely different direction. I'm a little Rikrok here. I can't afford to do that. They ain't gonna pay me no mind. So I had to be very, I guess, intentional with my, working out the strategy. And it wasn't just me. Both Robert and myself were, talking back and forth for months before we finally said, all right, this is kind of the direction we want to head in, and this is what we need to start working on. And so, then came the pandemic, and joke's on me.
Well, the pandemic has pretty much put like a halt to most things, but from a fan perspective, I can say that we are definitely ready for more Rikrok, and we can't wait to hear you
Appreciate
on the
that.
radio. Speaking of your kids, have
Yeah.
they ever expressed an interest in making music?
You know what? All three of them have. My eldest daughter, she's actually a really good actress, and so she wants to pursue that as a career. And so when she started showing an interest in that, I was like, okay, listen, so this you may want to have a plan B as well. So while you're building this, and thinking that me, I was in the entertainment industry, not acting, but music, thinking, okay, yeah, she's gonna listen to me, and yeah, it didn't work out that way. She's doing it her way. So, but she's actually studying it in college right now. She hasn't listened to me with the whole thing about have like a secondary thing to fall back on. I mean, I really didn't either. So she's following in my footsteps, just not listening to what I'm telling her again. Yeah, but then also the two younger ones as well. Both seem interested in music. So the middle one, my daughter, she's interested in music production, which is kind of cool. And so writing and the whole process of creating songs. And then my son has decided he wants to basically be me. All right. So I keep telling him he needs to kind of raise his ambitions a little bit, but but they're both well, all three of them sing pretty well, which is awesome. I started out singing pretty rough, so they started out singing pretty well, and they have, I think, a pretty good grasp on what good music is. I mean, even some of the songs out here, especially the two older ones, they're humming and singing along songs that I grew up listening to. It just blows my mind. I'm thinking, where did you even hear these things? Because it's not like we play a lot of music in the house. Turns out my wife though is the one that plays like 80s music in the car. So they know every song from back in the day, which is awesome because that means they have a good idea of what good music sounds like. Now I sound old. You heard this?
You know, I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I have a 4-year-old myself, and he loves listening to the oldies, everything from the 80s, and we even get him on some of the 60s and 70s stuff too. And he loves it. He's always in the back seat in his car seat, bopping his head around. So it's cool when you can give them that foundation and that
Yeah.
musical
And you see,
knowledge that sometimes
yep.
doesn't get passed on.
No, indeed. And it's because I'm a product of that. I grew up listening to all kinds of old music. My dad used to play, LPs. And it was a thing like when he was home on a Sunday afternoon or whatever else, that's what he'd do. He'd take out, vinyls and for the fun of it. So I'm hearing Nat King Cole and being from the Caribbean, it's a very diverse musical palette, if you will. So you'll hear Nat King Cole, you'll hear Kenny Rogers, you'll hear Bob Marley, and everything in between. So I was exposed to a large number of genres growing up, and so and then I was born in the UK, so I have that 70s pop music that I grew up listening to, and then all these other influences, and so of course it influences the way I sing, the way I write, all these kind of things. And then I'm seeing my kids have a similar experience, which is just so awesome.
That is really amazing to hear. So speaking of like your father, he's the one that kind of got you into like some of the more reggae and some of that kind of music that ultimately influenced your writing.
Right. Yeah. So I was born in the UK, so I grew up in London, and both my parents are Jamaican. And so basically how that would work, there was a mass exodus of not just Jamaicans, but people from the Caribbean in general to the UK in the 60s, I think 50s and 60s. So they moved to the UK when I think it was in the 60s, like early 60s. And so the way that people from the Caribbean would basically stay connected to home would be usually through music and food. And so that was, it was always, got to get the latest Bob Marley album, got to get the latest John Holt album. And, whatever's coming out of Jamaica right now, that's what we want to get on top of. And then I have friends from like Barbados. It was the same thing for them. It was what's the latest soca songs that are coming out. They got to keep in touch, got to stay on top of what's going on. So don't lose that cultural identity. And so I grew up hearing all of this stuff. And and of course my dad, he would constantly sing when shaving or when showering. So I grew up hearing that. My mom now, she I don't remember hearing her sing that much. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I can't remember hearing her sing that much. But she'd tell us how she used to play the organ in church, and so there was all these musical influences. And then her nieces formed a group in the UK. It was, I think, 4 sisters, And so there was that, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I grew up with these people, and now they're on stage, and I don't know if you're familiar with the group Take Six, out of the US. It's Brian McKnight's brother. I think Brian McKnight himself was in that group at one point. So it's 6 guys. They sing all a cappella, the most amazing stuff you've ever heard. And they're all like classically trained musicians. So they came to do a concert in London, and my cousins were the ones that opened for them. So this is the first time I'm seeing them like on stage, and then, you know, it was really cool to see. And then now comes Take Six, and I'm like, oh my goodness, where did this come from? But I had influences from all over the place. And then now we finally moved to Jamaica now, and I told him about my friend Nigel. So he's touring with Shabba Ranks at the time, who was the biggest reggae act at the time. And then I started going to college, and we have these talent shows, and I start performing at these talent shows and started, getting a little bit university famous. And then so me and Nigel start hanging out a bit more, and then that's how we end up going to the studio. And then I just tap into this whole world that I figured was there, but I had no way of accessing it. And then all of a sudden, here I am with all these big artists that I grew up listening to. So I remember the first time I met Maxi Priest. Like, Maxi Priest, I'm like, okay, this is like the man right here, and here he is, just chilling like ain't nothing. And all these guys that you grew up listening to, I met Gregory Isaacs one time on tour, which my father was a big Gregory Isaacs fan, so it was cool to meet him. Third World, another huge reggae band, I got to do a tour with them, and I'm just in this world that it's you kind of you're still excited about it, but you kind of get comfortable in it. And then it's not until you talk to somebody that's not in the industry, and you tell them the things that you've experienced, and they're like, the minds are blown, like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, this is an amazing life I'm living right now. Didn't think of it. You forget, meeting Michael Jackson and all these, Usher and all these people. Usher, that was a funny story. I met so at the Michael Jackson 30th anniversary, he had a song, "You Remind Me of a Girl That I Once Knew." For some reason, once I saw him, I couldn't get that song out of my head. And so I'm constantly singing this thing, and I look around, there's Usher looking at me like, really? It's in a joking way, but it was, it's funny to see a big celebrity like Usher can find the humor in it and laughing with me, as opposed to be getting upset with me or whatever you'd kind of assume the reaction would be. And then someone like Justin Timberlake. That was a really cool encounter. We're performing at, I think it was the American Music Awards. So we performed, and we're backstage now. So I'm just hanging out backstage, and then trying to get to that door so I can see what's going on. And as I'm inching my way towards that door, and then the show ends, and there's a mass exodus of people. So I got to get out of the way. So I'm standing on what feels like a little hill, people passing by, celebrity after celebrity after celebrity. Then comes Justin Timberlake, and he looks up and sees me. This dude came over to me to tell me hi, to say hi to me. I was like, what? You said something like, hi, I don't think we've met before. Hi, yeah, nice to meet you. And then kept walking. I'm like, okay, that was Justin Timberlake. Where was the camera? Right? Oh, it's just I really can't complain. I've had an amazing experience in my life so far.
It really sounds like it. I can't say I'm not a little bit jealous of you meeting all these stars like Michael Jackson, Usher, Justin Timberlake. I mean, that sounds really amazing.
Cool. It's funny. With Michael Jackson, I didn't get to meet him, but I was on the same stage with him. So
it's kind of like meeting him.
Kind of like meeting him, yeah. So I can probably put that on a resume and get away with it, maybe.
So, speaking of a lot of these artists, that a lot of them are still performing today. With your musical aspirations on the horizon, could you see yourself working with any of these artists?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm loving a lot of the new up and coming singers. But I say a lot. There's like, of course, the Justin Timberlakes. I could never believe that I would get to the point where I'd be a believer, but I am. There's no denying it. The kid can sing, and he's got some incredible songs. And there's all these other up and comings that sound really good, and they got some really good music, and you can tell there's a lot of thought. So chances are there's probably a really good team behind it. But I mean, even some of the, the older ones, that'd be awesome. And Stevie Wonder, I'm still a huge Stevie Wonder fan. I don't know if he probably doesn't record anymore. But I mean, I forget which one of those, the James Corden thing. I forget what it's called, where they're driving in the car.
Oh yeah,
No, I'm talking about
carpool karaoke.
Carpool karaoke. That I watched that episode with him, and he's just still amazing. It's just unbelievable that this man is, he must be in his 70s by now, and still sounds incredible. And it's effortless for him. So I'd absolutely love to collaborate with any of these guys.
Well, I hope to hear it someday. I've always loved your musical talents, and I think it would mesh very well with like today's music scene.
Excellent. Your check is in the mail. Thank you for saying that.
So, what artists, you already mentioned Justin Bieber. What other artists are you frequenting lately?
There's not a lot. Justin is one of the few. I'm trying to think of I don't know names. I haven't been keeping up with names, to be perfectly honest. But I'll hear songs, and I'm trying to think of a song right now. Of course, I'm going blank. Nothing. I got Bruno Mars. Okay. He's one. He's got some really good music. I'm trying to think who else. There must be more. Come on, Ricky, wake up.
It is pretty early.
It is pretty early. What is it? 11 o'clock in the morning for me right now. Yeah, I don't get up before 1, 2 in the afternoon. I'm kidding. I can't think of anyone in particular, but I know like a lot of normally what would happen to me, I would listen to like the top 10 that's playing on radio. And for the most part, it's pop and it's okay. Yeah, these are kind of corny, but now I'm liking a lot of them. A lot of the songs I'm hearing on top 40 radio or pop radio are surprisingly, I'm gravitating towards them. And I think the writing has significantly improved. And I think it comes back to that same thing we're talking about with authenticity. The audience has made it clear that they're tired of the bubblegum corny stuff. They want some real music. Even kids, the youngsters, who are the primary audience, the primary target, are like, yeah, nah, give me some Otis Redding. And you're like, what? And so it seems like the writing has gotten to that point, one, and then even the singing, the singing, the level of performance you're hearing on these recordings nowadays is a whole different level to what you used to hear. You can tell a lot of these new singers are listening to the Stevie Wonders and listening to the Otis Reddings and all these, really great singers. And it's just impossible to listen to these guys for any length of time and not start to sound like them somewhat. And so I think that's what's kind of happening. There was one, Shirley Murdoch, another incredible singer. I mean, even Whitney Houston, amazing singer. And you're hearing a couple of these female singers coming up now, sounding like, oh, you sound like you've been listening to some Whitney or some Mariah. And it's great to see that, because the quality is just going up and up and up and up. And you combine that with the new technological advancements in recording now, and it's just making the product incredible. I'm very excited to see what's coming.
I often wonder if the reason that kind of is happening is the internet's giving people the ability to listen to, a wide diversity of different kinds of music. Yep. Whereas, in Whitney Houston, when she was a young woman, in order to hear new music, she either had to flip on the radio or go to a record store and kind of gamble which records she thought might look good at the time. Whereas now,
yep, you're perfectly right. You're perfectly right, because Spotify playlists, for example, you got songs in there that even I probably would never have thought of to listen to, but there they are. And so, of course, all these kids listening to this stuff, and now they want to hear more of it because they like it. It seems authentic again. It seems relatable, which is why someone like an Adele will do so well. She sings a song, you believe this song was her. Doesn't matter if she wrote it or not. You believe this is her life she's singing about, because that's the kind of performance she's putting on. Given listening to these old school singers, the Gladys Knights. Oh, Gladys Knight was another person I met. She was another what was it? It's like a universal group convention. So the different labels on the group, they meet, I think it's once a year. And so she was on one of the other universal labels, and I met her. Just the nicest lady ever. Just unbelievably cool. But these are the kinds of people that, they open their mouth and you're just like, I can't be in the music industry. We're clearly not in the same industry. She's on a whole other level. Her Anita Baker did that to me too. She came. I saw her live in concert after I hadn't been doing any music for a number of years at that point because I wasn't liking what I was hearing. But man, I saw Anita Baker live and she restored my love for music. She restored my faith in music. It was amazing to watch her, and it was such a natural performance. She was there on stage. Apparently, she's a sound engineer, so she made it sounded amazing. And so she's on stage and she's got her musician, the band is on there, and she calls them her friends. You know, she's thanking people. You know, she's so thankful to be able to do this. You know, she gets to travel with her friends and make music and perform for you guys. And I'm like, man, it was like it's like she invited you into her world. We were in her living room and just chilling, and it was unbelievable. But she opens her mouth and sings. It's like, man, it's how will I ever get to that point? And I think, you know, I think it's important not to get too caught up in, you know, a plaque. Yeah, I have a plaque. Wonderful. But can you actually sing? How good are you? When you perform, do you move people? You know, do people connect with you? Do people feel like, man, yeah, you touch me. Yeah, that one got me good. That's my favorite comment. That's my favorite. You know, after a performance, when, you know, you go talk to the audience and they're like, man, that really touched me, that performance there. And so that's what I love to hear. Like, yeah, man, I want you to feel like we were experiencing something together. And a lot of aspiring artists get caught up in the music video images, you know, the whole cars and houses and girls and whatever else, which ain't real. You know, it's a show you're putting on to draw people in. But now once you draw people in, hook them with that, man, you have fans for life.
Absolutely. You know, some of the best music, in my opinion, came out of the 60s and 70s. And, you know, you hear those songs and it totally transport you to another place.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yep. Totally agree.
So going back to some of the younger artists that you're hearing on the radio, for up and coming artists, being somebody from the industry, could you give them any advice or anything to think about when trying to get into the music industry?
Right. Yeah, sure. Man, that we could spend a whole interview on just that. There was so much when I was up and coming. I had so many questions, and the more answers I got, the more questions it generated. It was just, I had no idea how vast the music industry really was, and how many different aspects there were, and, you know, what was truly involved in blowing up a song and you know, building a successful career. And so the first thing I always advise, you know, when people approach me in the supermarket, like, I want to get in the music business, how do I do it? Get some books. There's a bunch of great books on you know, how the music industry works. One I always recommend is first of all, you know, it all starts with a song. If you don't have a great song, all the amazing marketing in the world will just end up being a waste of money. So you need an amazing song. So the Billboard Guide to Writing and Producing Hit Songs, I think it's called, by a guy named Eric Beale. That's a great book to read. It gives you a really good perspective on, you know, first of all, who your audience is. It's not just the people in the crowd. To get to those people, you got to convince a bunch of middlemen in between, or middlewomen in between, that this is something worth promoting to these people. And so that's one book that I recommend. There's another one called, what is it called? Song Maps. So it's a really interesting way to come up with song ideas, and, you know, how to structure a song and how to even plan a song before you even get to start writing it. So you have an idea, as like, man, let's make a cool idea for a song. You know, showing you how to write it down in a map. It's just the coolest thing. But above, you know, overall, spend some time educating yourself. It's so important to understand how the business works. And most disagreements that I see with artists and managers or artists and labels, it's almost always because the artist doesn't understand how the business actually works. There's risk. There's one person taking risk, and then there's the other person not taking any risk, but the one not taking any risk wants to get all the benefit. Don't want to share the risk, but they want to share all the benefits, kind of thing. And, you know, it's a balancing act. And if you can understand both perspectives, then you'll have a much better time. You'll be much easier to deal with. And, you know, people will stick with you for the long term when they realize, okay, you get it. You realize that this is a an up and down kind of thing. Sometimes it'll be up, sometimes it'll be down, but this is what we're going to do. Now, of course, things have evolved since, that was the year 2000 when Hotshot came out. So we now have things like Spotify. There's social media, which wasn't a thing back then. So now there's these additional things that you want to learn. I see most people using social media just perfectly wrong. DMing, program directors and say, "Hey, play my song," is not the way to go. There's a handful of guys I can recommend. What is his name? Oh, I've gone blank. Adam Ivy. So Adam Ivy on YouTube, great guy to follow. Just, especially if you're trying to do this on your own. And that's the thing. It's not like if you're trying to do this on your own. Even when we were promoting It Wasn't Me, we were an independent group at first. So Shaggy wasn't necessarily signed first. You start your own thing. You start, putting your own money into it and promoting your stuff, create a buzz. Now the record company is interested in you. As opposed to, man, I can sing. And waiting for somebody to just drop a load of money on you. It's not going to happen. You gotta do something. You have to have something to promote for somebody to, or to sell, for a company to step in and say, "Man, we want to help you sell this because we can see where we can profit." So it's so important to understand how the music industry actually works and understand the pressure that each section is under. I divide it into three. So you have manufacturing, marketing, and distribution. And that's how every business is run. Manufacturing, in our case, the product we're selling just happens to be music, but it could be chairs, it could be sandwiches, but in our case, it's music. And so you got to master that process, got to get that process down really well. Then marketing. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that there have been tons, if not millions of products that were amazing that just never made it because the marketing was off. So the marketing has to be right, which means if you don't know how to market, you either have to learn how to market, or you have to find somebody that already knows how to market, a manager. That's that. Now, once you've done all the marketing, you've made everybody aware of this amazing music that you've created. If it's not available for sale anywhere, it would all have been in vain. It'll all be a waste of time. So that's that third thing that is essential. You have to get all three of them right, or it all falls apart. It struggles, or you'll see people with okay songs, and they're marketing and they're making them available on Spotify and wherever else, Apple Music, and it's just not selling, and I can't figure out why. I marketed, I did all the social media stuff right. I'm everywhere. I'm on social media every day. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Snapchat, whatever else, TikTok, all of these things, and it's not working. Yeah, because the song isn't any good, right? So and learning to detach yourself from it. As we're the ones that created these songs, so it's very difficult to separate ourselves from them. But we have to learn how to do it. During the creative time when you're writing and recording, yeah, man, be as attached as you can be. Be as authentic as you can. But when it comes time to marketing now, you got to kind of step back and say, all right, this is my song. Where does it fit in the marketplace? What is the audience? Which audience am I going after, first of all? Which is a question you got to ask even before you start writing. Am I after a R&B market? Am I going after a pop market? Am I going after a country and Western market? Who am I going for? And within this market, what age group am I after? Is it the teeny boppers? Is it the millennials? Is it the older group, whatever we're called now? I don't know all these names. Who are you going after? You got to tailor your music to it. And then now when it comes to the marketing part now, your visuals have to align with this. So no point, if you're 50, you decide you want to do a gangster rap album, but you look like an accountant. That's probably not going to work, right? So everything has to line up. Everything has to make sense. So if there's any kind of, I guess, incongruity, is that how you pronounce that word? Then it just all falls apart. And so there's so much to learn. And this is the brief overview I'm giving you right now. So, you got to spend some time learning how it works. It's like a sport. You don't just jump onto a sport and enter the Olympics the following week. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. There's a lot of tweaking, a lot of honing, and specialization is another very important thing. I play volleyball, so it's 6 people on a court, and at a lower level, yeah, we all just do the same thing. But as you start to get better now, people start to specialize based on their skill level, based on the needs of the team, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same thing with music. If there's a gap in reggae right now that we could really do with another It Wasn't Me, maybe that's what you need to be working on. You got to look at it like that. It's very difficult for creatives like myself to think like that, and it takes a while to get to that point. But the sooner you can do it, is the sooner you'll start seeing some progress and start to be taken more seriously. I think so. That's kind of that nutshell right there.
Absolutely. And your website says that you actually, and I'm assuming that this is all part of what you do on your website, which is you can coach new artists and up and coming artists.
I'm not actually providing coaching directly, but I have put together a couple of free courses. So basically what was happening to me, I'd literally be in the supermarket and someone would stop me in the parking lot asking me about music, and then half an hour, 45 minutes later, we're there chatting. I'm telling them all kinds of different things. And I was like, man, there must be an easier way to do this. And I started looking and said, well, why don't I just do a course? And so that's what I've done. Those are little mini courses. I actually did, when Robert and I were talking about, me re-entering the music industry, I decided, all right, let me see how it's done now, because this is, we're talking about 15 years ago, that before I did anything in the industry. And so like, all right, let me see, maybe there's some things I need to learn. Whoa, I was not prepared for all of the changes that have taken place. And so I mentioned there's social media now, there's streaming now. None of these things existed when Hotshot was the huge hit that it was. So what I ended up doing was reaching out to a bunch of different, like some of the top people I could find online, doing well online, and reached out to them and asked them if they would do an interview. So it's a similar kind of thing to what we're doing right now. And they were amazingly generous and shared a ton of stuff. And so I basically packaged it up into a little members area on my website, and I'm giving it away for free. So I can send you a link over. You can probably keep it below the interview when it's done. But I think what I'll end up doing, I think the website will be go.gigfanatic.com/free. So that I highly recommend it. It's 6 different experts that I interviewed, experts in different areas of the music industry. So one couple of them are producers. One guy, he launched and now runs a 7-figure business selling beats. So I know that will appeal to a lot of up and coming artists. There's one guy, he specializes in music marketing in general. And then there's another guy who he does a lot of stuff, but one of the things I think will interest a lot of people is placing songs in movies and TV and commercial and whatever else, which of course nowadays, people are working from home a lot now. And especially musicians got really hit hard with the, being locked down, can't travel, can't do live gigs, can't do any of this stuff. But you still have a handful of musicians that are doing really well working from home. And, a couple of them talk about this kind of stuff. So you can just check out that interview series. And it's totally free. So.
Hey, I'm glad to hear you guys. You heard it. Go check out the website. I will put a link in the description box below for you guys to check out. You can check out Rikrok's course, and it's completely free from what it sounds like. And I'm getting near the end of my list of questions. One thing I'm curious about is that being that it's 2021, do you have a New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution right now is to stop making New Year's resolutions.
That's a good one.
I don't know. It's funny. Every New Year is like and it's not just every New Year. Every day is a chance to start over. Like I said, all right, I need to get back in shape. So I joined the gym, and I'd go the first couple of days, and then I'd miss the rest of the week. And then it's like, man, don't beat yourself up. You missed the second half of the week, or you missed the second half of the month, or, you wasted 2020. Okay, it's done. It's happened already. Water under the bridge. You got today. You got the day after today. You got the week after, et cetera, et cetera. Small steps. We didn't sell 10 million plus albums, by making a decision one time. We got to that by deciding to spend time. It wasn't every day. It was more like, in kind of spurts. There was, we had like a 2-3 week period where we just song every day, and then took a break, and then start up again and picked up where we left off. So you want to do work that kind of builds on itself. So a song is something you can write and put down. You do a song a week, that's 50 plus songs you'll have at the end of a year. Now, even Ed Sheeran does this. An interview he did, he went through a year where he wrote a song a day.
Wow.
I can't even imagine what that's like. But a song a day, he ended up with 365 songs. He said most of them were crap. But I'm pretty sure that a good chunk of them were the songs we know him for today. And it was just an exercise he gave himself. Just a song a day and see what happens. Song a day, song a day, song a day, song a day. Learn how to produce. Learn how to record your own demos. The software is just so much easier now. Everything is there. You can literally stay at home, a desk. This is a regular desk. It's not even a producer's desk, with some speakers and a laptop and some little audio interface. And so you can be up and running in no time, and start tinkering or start finding somebody to learn some recording techniques from. You'd be amazed by just doing an hour a couple of times a week, or if you can do an hour a day, great. You'd be amazed how much you'll learn, and how much you'll achieve at the end of a couple of months. And a year is like a big goal. You hear people talk about a year goal, 1 year goal, and 5-year goals. Give yourself a 90-day goal. What can you do in 90 days? And you'd be shocked. So like this interview series, I want to hear from you in 90 days, Robert, and see how many interviews you got done. Right?
You will. You will.
Just all you're doing is making a commitment. You emailed me, and I responded, and that was it. And I'm sure you've emailed other people and they haven't responded. Well, move on. Email some other people. Right? There's no shortage of people out there that can help you, and so just keep plugging away.
Well, thank you so much, Rikrok.
All right, man.
Is there anything that, before we end the interview, is there anything you wanted to talk about or shout out or plug or anything?
What's the name of your podcast?
It's Ditching the Spotlight.
Ditching the Spotlight. So this is what I'm going to say to your audience. Ditching the Spotlight is the go-to podcast now, people. Subscribe, listen to every episode as soon as they come out, and support Robert. That's what I'm going to leave you with right now.
Thank you so much, Ricky. You've been
No
an
problem.
absolute honor to interview and talk with. And is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, or?
I think I'm good. Just go check out my website, go.gigfanatic.com/free. Give you that free stuff. We'll talk from there.
Thank you so much, Ricky. You have a wonderful day.
You too, man. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.
What an absolutely tremendous interview. Rikrok was truly an amazing guest, and I would love to have him on again. If you have any comments or questions for Rikrok, or a suggestion for another celebrity on the show, reach out to me on Twitter at DitchingP. Again, that's DITCHINGP on Twitter. Also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss a single episode. Our next interview will be with Eric Violette from the extremely popular FreeCreditReport.com commercials in 2010. Thank you for watching, and stay gnarly, my friends.